This is the October 11th, 2012 meeting of the Athens City Shade Tree Commission. We will go straight to Ron Lucas's report.
No right away or landscape, right?
No.
Okay. Well, we had our Arbor Day celebration on October 5th at the West State Street Park Bike Path Extension. Thanks to Sincock for helping organize that event. Basically, what we did is we planted 2 new trees. We planted an elm and an autumn blaze maple, and we had mulching workshops for a number of the kids and community members that were there from West Elementary School. Talked to them about pruning and tree identification. I'd say there was probably about 80 people down there.
Yeah.
And it was really well attended, and it was very active, so it was fun. It was a lot of fun. The OU flute choir was there, and they played some seasonal music, and the mayor was unable to attend, but Chris Nisley from City Council was there to read the mayoral proclamation. So that's in the books, and we can use that towards our Tree City USA application, which I just got the notification for this week that we can start that process. So we'll get busy with that. Which brings me to tree planting. Aside from Court Street, there are some other areas that I'd like to pay some special attention to, particularly Tulane, the ditch, the city storm sewer line that runs through there needs some trees. There's a request for a couple trees on Lorraine. Paul Underwood, I believe is his name. We need to do a replacement at Canterbury and Lamar, and there's some trees at the community center that we need to replace as well. So if there are other requests for trees, I suggest that we just start a list, because I don't think we'll be able to get them all on the ground this year. It'll be up to around the $7,500 to $10,000 range we're looking at right now. So there was a request from Steve Patterson, City Council, about the tree planting at the parking lot across from Jager's Funeral Home. Did we have any species that we wanted to have planted there?
Nope.
No?
No, we have not been asked about that one at all.
Okay, well, I think we're being asked now, so I think we can take a look at that at maybe the
I've got a list. I mean, they can just pick them off the list. I don't want to get into this situation where they come back to us and say, well, your trees you recommended didn't grow.
Okay.
Or we couldn't get hold of the trees you recommended, so we didn't plant any. I'm sorry, I've got a bit tired of this response from some of these developers. And so we have a tree planting list.
I'll give them a copy of that.
Yeah. I think there are some perfectly capable landscapers around here who can look at that site and sell them some trees that will grow there successfully.
And we're talking about the middle strip between,
It was widened recently.
Yeah.
Support some more trees.
Yeah, it's at least 12 foot wide, right?
No, I'm not sure if it's 12 foot. I'd have to measure it, but it's a lot wider. When it was originally put in, it was just a little strip. You can plant some maybe grass there.
Yeah.
But not a tree.
Now it's wide enough for trees, yeah.
And there are no overhead power lines.
No.
Nope, I don't think so.
So
we can get some shade trees.
Just say
Yeah.
put in tall trees.
Yeah, they are required to plant large shade trees.
Okay.
John Patsky and I have discussed it, and it was clear in the original plans what was supposed to happen, and the original plans weren't followed.
Okay. Yeah, large shade trees.
I would say many trees would do fairly well in that setting.
Oh,
so,
yeah. I mean, if you look at the trees that are growing on Morris Avenue, a diverse bunch will grow in that area.
There's a tree across from your house, David, at the corner 109 that the owner was wanting to have cut down.
Yeah, it's a silver maple that's in decline.
It is in decline. Yes, it is.
And it's the usual story. How many more times do we want to prune it before we remove it? And, I'm of the opinion that it is still a healthy tree, but it does need continuous pruning. And so, really, I think it's up to your end of the business to try and guide us as to.
Prune it. We're not taking it down yet.
Okay. But it definitely needs some deadwood pruning.
It's kind of interesting. There's a crab apple growing out of it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's a raccoon that lives up there somewhere as well. I mean,
So it's a neat tree.
oh yeah, yeah.
I had no interest in taking it down at this point. So
But it is
we've been
one of
running
those-
out of too many maples on the east side. I don't want to lose any more.
Yeah, it is one of those silver maples that's been in decline. And, there's another one further down the street on the same side at the junction with Morris and
Garfield, or it's one of the short streets.
the short street that comes in by the Sonic. Grant, yeah. There's another one down there that, again, we seem to be continuously deadwood pruning it, and eventually it's going to come out. But the owner wants to keep a tree as long as we can.
Nice.
That's a sugar maple, I believe.
I think it is, yeah. It could be a sugar maple. The Acer-free Maniis and the oaks that we planted a little bit down the street from there are all doing very well. So, there's a good potential replacements
Okay,
for those trees.
So that's what's going on from my point of view. I did have one more thing to think about. Of course, we can't make a decision on it, but I would like to talk about maybe changing the recurring agenda item, Emerald Ash Borer, to something different.
It's only there because I think we have to keep an eye on things, that's all.
I agree, and with the recent threat of the Asian longhorn beetle in Claremont County, which isn't really a threat to us yet, but maybe call it something along the lines of potential threats or potential tree threats, or something along that line, so we're not just talking about EAP. We have multiple things that we can discuss in that agenda item. Just a thought, so.
Just tree pathogens.
Yeah.
Tree pathogens.
something like
So that includes
nice.
insects as well as diseases then?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and there's always something to be aware of.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll be a little more inclusive there. Won't be so limited.
In fact, I'd like to get the word awareness in there, because that's really what it's about, is to keep people aware of what's coming. Yeah, I'll see what we can do to change that one. Any questions at all for Ron? No?
Have your guys seen any ash tree decline or any suspicious holes in any of the ash trees? Okay, that's good.
We were due to vote on the tree policies, but as we don't have a quorum, we won't be doing that tonight. The other item I've got on here is possible revisions of Title 37, and these are to do with buffering. The Code Office asked us to look at the buffering section of Title 37, which they feel is too onerous. Currently it requires a number of things, but in particular screening between adjacent properties, which can only be only not be installed if both owners at the either side of the boundary agree that it isn't necessary. So that's one particular issue. The other issue that the Code Office would like us to consider is that in an earlier version of the landscape ordinance, we had 4 and 8 foot green buffers around properties. This proved, if you recall, to be rather difficult. We kept having to give exceptions to this, particularly in areas like Stimpson Avenue or other fairly heavily built up areas that there was almost no way to allow for those. However, the Code Office would like us to consider those in particular with respect to where you've got different zones. So if you've got a business zone up against the residential zone, or maybe between an R3 and R2 or R1. But how deep that buffer should be, and whether we should retain the height requirement, which talks about we'll screen activities on the lot from view from the normal level of a first-story window on an abutting lot within 5 years. So we actually allowed time for whatever green stuff to grow. But the idea was you'd be coming up to something like a 4 to 6 foot level to act as a screen. And part of it was because we have parking lots put into R3s which are somewhat objectionable to other people. They would like to be able to screen between them. And so that's part of that. But clearly it's a very complicated issue. And it's one that, as I said, the Code Office would like us to consider proposing a revision of Title 37 to the City Council. So, any thoughts?
Well, I wonder about reducing the buffering depth to, let's say, 4 feet, but not, the height is a bigger factor to me as a
But Dave,
property
4 feet, these
isn't
big
much.
trucks, that the tire goes, they're, a lot of cars, they extend
Yeah.
beyond. I mean, 4 feet limits what can grow, and then you got the
Right.
salt runoff. I mean,
Mhm.
8 feet is not a lot.
Okay.
I mean, it's a sales thing, but gosh, you need, you gotta protect the landowners that live there now, not just the potential for development, Sorry, that's my.
Okay.
Yeah, this is,
Understand.
one way to also look at this is to see, given the sort of standard size lots that we may be dealing with, is to see if we did put an 8-foot buffer around a property, would that then give you, in the case of the residential ones, sufficient to meet the 60% or 40%, I forget what.
You want 40 for
40% of green space, isn't it, around the property?
For residential.
In the residential areas. I mean, it's possible that the 8-foot would actually match up with that one.
Yeah, or even 6, split the difference. Now,
Yeah.
here's a mathematical approach, which
Mhm.
Dave would like this. For a tree to get 10 to 12 inches in diameter, ideally you want 1,000 cubic feet of soil. Now, this is impossible for most trees in the urban environment, but if we really start to shoot for that, that also, when a tree has 1,000 cubic feet of soil, which is basically, 9 by 9, foot and a half deep or something. You do the math, yeah.
It's 10 by 10 by 10.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I never was good at math.
I mean, that would just be one way of doing it. I mean,
Yeah. So it is a lot of space.
The way we have done the surface calculation before is we've come up with, I think, 240 square feet and no less than 8 foot is the minimum dimension of that space. Whatever shape it is, you can't have it less than 8 feet
Okay. Yeah.
from one side to another. If you took that, you'd then be dealing with a depth of something like 4 and a bit feet.
They don't go down that deep.
No, they don't. Most trees don't.
Maybe 2 feet
Yeah.
for most.
Yeah, so 1,000 cubic feet is not unreasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, and that gives you the most capacity for stormwater as well, for stormwater retention. So if eventually we're using trees to abate stormwater, it's a good calculate. It's just kind of a guideline calculation. So.
Yeah, but
Do
also
other-
bearing in mind the depth of soil as well, that we don't want to assume 10 feet deep.
Yeah.
It's just not, a maple.
They're just not going to grow that.
Like 90% is just in the top, 3
Yeah,
inches.
sometimes when they're using like structural soil or some of these engineering techniques, they can, like say we learned about this at the conference, they're digging up, excavating a whole site, putting in a parking lot. You can actually make the planting site, the wells deeper and use, graded gravel or silva cells, and thereby you can encourage deeper penetration of the roots in the soil and get more stormwater and stuff.
Does that happen?
Yeah, I guess in Cincinnati they're trying it, and some of the bigger cities in the United States, just to get that, they're trying to get more volume. So they want they want the trees to be able to do.
There was a study they did, which a few years ago, which I think the roots tend to follow air penetration. And so if you've got a crack in the ground, and so if you then engineer the soil so the air can get into it, presumably you could encourage them.
I mean, they send down, these are the water-loving roots, basically. It's,
Yeah, fibrous roots. But it's Jim Urban. He's a landscape architect. He's written some books about it, and there's some stuff on the internet. A lot of it's proprietary stuff, but it's using structural soil is one of the things you can look up, or silva cells. But
it makes sense. I understand.
Yeah, it's kind of like, but that's kind of the magic number in urban forestry right now, is that 1,000 cubic feet.
But you would almost, to encourage that type of development, you would almost have to water it, or make sure that there's enough water going down there to give it a reason. Even though then it can penetrate, it's going after resources.
Yeah.
And if there's no, if it's on a little island and you're not getting runoff or anything, just don't see that happen.
Well, and it also it's with only new builds. Like
Okay.
it wouldn't work when you're trying to put trees into existing developments and stuff. But it's still a guideline when we think about trees in parking lots and trees in, uptown in these 4x4 pits, or even in the elongated planting islands. It's just something to think about. That we can strive to give them as much soil as possible. So that's an argument when people are saying we only 4 4-foot space just probably isn't going to really give us that canopy we need.
Right. Do other municipalities have a compromise arrangement of less than 8 feet, or are you seeing any?
I think Dublin uses that 8-foot number, and you can really see it in their developments. That they're very green. There's a lot of green divides between each property use. It just depends. There's not a lot of that happening right here in Southeast Ohio. You guys are kind of ahead of the curve in that.
So Marietta doesn't have an 8-foot?
They are trying. They have your ordinance. They've been trying to pass it for many years.
Okay. And haven't, so.
Yeah. It's hard to.
One of the other issues we need to think about is, in terms of buffering, when people are redeveloping a site, should there be any special allowance, forgiveness or whatever, because that was typically where we really hit a brick wall with these things. I think the classic one was down on Stimpson Avenue between Hocking Valley Bank and the post office. It's all concrete. Hocking Valley did a nice job with what they could do, but they certainly couldn't afford to have
put in an 8-foot
boundary there. There just wasn't the space in it, and so the language of the ordinance was such that we were allowed to forgive them the need for that. But I'm wondering what else we can think about ahead of time when it comes to redeveloping very intense sites like that.
Well, it's probably good to have have the dream on paper. And then the reality is that you are a living body of experts, and that you can provide that flexibility when it's necessary or when you deem it's reasonable. I don't know that you want to build in for all these variables, because they'll push it no matter what.
Well, you see, the way that I think the Code Office would like to see it go is that since those are two businesses, then there's no reason for them to have a buffer between them. And
if it's residential to a business. But if it was residential
to a business, we might well force it. And that might make more sense, because I think in all of the zones where business does butt up against residential, there are reasonable buffers there now. And so we could take on this idea that the Code Office suggested, that it's only between differing zones that you actually have this 8-foot requirement, that you don't have it for the conventional business zones, for example.
Well, there's some other arguments for having buffers. It's a place to put utilities. It provides traffic calming. It keeps people from going from place to place. You can direct traffic. Again, go to Dublin. Look at you guys have been there in their shopping plazas and stuff. It's beautiful. And it does take a lot more space to have green space and trees, but I think it's worth it. They probably have less accidents, because it spreads people out more, and
also attractive to shoppers.
Aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
Yes.
There are probably other business to business where there is a nice buffer and it is an advantage. That's an example of, there was no room.
You see, under commercial and institutional and industrial landscaping, we do require an 8-foot buffer or 8-foot landscape strip at the front or adjacent to the street right of way. So I guess if you're on a corner, you get two lots of that. But that's the only place where we currently require an 8-foot buffer. I think that's very helpful in terms of providing the green space in front. But then it's a case of, do you extend it all the way around? And then if you do, you're going to hit this problem of having to forgive people who aren't going to be able to comply with it. We don't have to solve it tonight. I'm just saying that these are the issues that we're going to face if we start going down this road of revising this. Because we went into this with something that didn't work, and it had lots of buffers, and we've now got, I think, some language in here which is difficult to enforce anyway. The piece about the adjacent properties having to agree that there's no need for a screen. the code office don't like that one. But they would like us to put back in a buffer.
Yeah. It is just Athens, it's just a unique challenge living here. It's a lot of people, the topography is hilly, and we're trying to squeeze so much infrastructure onto small sites, and it's your unique challenge, and I'm just glad that you guys are willing to look at these plans all the time and work through these challenges with the developers. I hope they realize how much you're giving, helping them make it happen.
Yeah. So, okay, well, we've got some, we'll flesh out some of these ideas, and we'll talk it over again at the next meeting. Are there any other items that people want to raise? If not, I'll adjourn this meeting of the Tree Commission. Thank you.